Are you ready to discover the magic of Finnish knitting patterns? From nature-inspired designs to more modern knitting patterns, Finland's knitwear designers tend to blend tradition with innovation really well. In this video, I am going to introduce you to some of Finland's most talented knitwear designers and their stunning patterns. And there is even going to be a giveaway with a very special prize from Laine magazine that I'm going to talk more about later in the video. Let's get started and dive into the world of Finnish knitting. By the way, if we haven't met before, my name is Annika and I'm coming to you from Germany. I am a natural yarn dyer as well as an avid knitter, and I basically love everything that is related to the five arts. When I started researching Finnish knitting patterns, I noticed something remarkable. Although Finland is a relatively small country with only about 5.5 million inhabitants, there are quite a number of very popular knitwear designers based in Finland. Just think about Sari Nordlund or Veronica Lindberg, aka Kudova Kika, for example. And on Ravelry alone, there are about 1,500 Finnish knitting patterns available to date. So after spending countless hours of looking through pages and pages of knitting patterns, I selected 13 Finnish knitting patterns that I want to share with you today. I noticed a lot of nature-inspired motifs as well as intricate details like lace, cables, and colorwork as a common theme throughout the patterns. So if this sounds like your cup of tea, let's have a look at the first knitting pattern. This design is called the Pride and Pearls Cardigan, and it is a knitting pattern by Veronica Lindberg. It was published in October of 2023, and what I really like about this design is the feminine romantic look, but even though it reads romantic, it also feels modern at the same time with the drop shoulder and the tie at the waist and also the balloon sleeves. It has some beautiful cable details on the left and right side of the front and also on the back. The yarn that she used was one strand of a merino yarn held together with two strands of a silk mohair, which comes out to a sport weight gauge of 22 stitches and 28 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needle sizes used are a US 2.5 and a US 6, which correspond to a 3 and 4 millimeter needle. The pattern comes in 9 different sizes. The finished bust measurements range from 95 to 153 centimeters or 37.5 up to 60.25 inches. It is recommended to be worn with 10 to 20 centimeters of positive ease, which corresponds to 4 to 8 inches. This design is worked top down, and although it is knitted in one piece, it is knitted flat because it is a cardigan, of course. You start with the upper back and pick up stitches for both upper fronts separately and work them flat. Then you pick up stitches for the sleeves around the armholes and work the sleeves in the round. Then you pick up stitches along the two front edges to work this front edge plackets in double knitting. And at the end you pick up stitches for the double folded collar. The finishing touch is this I-cord tie string, which is worked on double pointed needles and is inserted just above the rib hem of the cardigan. So a very beautiful design that I would love to knit someday. Next, we are going to talk about another design by Veronica Lindberg called the Wishbone Sweater. This design was published in December of 2022, and it features an all-over cable pattern, which I think looks very elegant and intricate, along with this high neck. The yarn that she used was the Sandnesgarn Double Sunday, so a 100% wool yarn held together with one strand of the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair. This comes out to a DK weight gauge of 24 stitches and 24 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needle sizes she used are a US 2.5 and a US 8, which correspond to a 3 and a 5 millimeter needle. The design comes in 5 different sizes with finished bust circumferences ranging from 83.5 up to 136.5 centimeters or 33.25 up to 54.75 inches. The sweater is recommended to be worn with 10 to 15 centimeters of positive ease, which corresponds to 4 to 6 inches. It is worked top down in the round with this all over cable motif and has a drop shoulder. The fit is slightly cropped, but of course you can easily modify the sweater to be longer if you like by just working some additional rounds for the body. The pattern includes instructions to shape the collar with German short rows, which I personally really like because I find that it ensures a better fit around the neck part, but you could also omit the German short rows. There are instructions for both versions in the pattern. The third design by Veronika Lindberg that I want to show you is called the Dirty Caramel Sweater. And this one was published in August of 2022 as part of her book Knit This that she published with Laine. So this is a more traditional colorwork yoke sweater, but instead of having the colorwork motif only on the yoke, it is extended down almost towards the hem of the body and also on the sleeves, which I think gives this design a bit more of a modern touch, and I really like this feature of this sweater. The yarn that she used was a merino yarn held together with a silk mohair, so this comes out to a DK weight gauge of 20 stitches and 21 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needle sizes used are a US 2.5 and a US 8, which corresponds to a 3 and 5 millimeter needle. This design comes in 6 different sizes with finished bust circumferences ranging from 80 to 116 centimeters or 32 up to 46.5 inches. It is recommended to be worn with 0 to 10 centimeters of positive ease, which corresponds to 0 to 4 inches. The sweater is knitted top down. It has a wide neckline opening and balloon-shaped sleeves that are finished off with a folded cuff and are also knitted in a contrast color. And there is even a YouTube video available in which Veronika Lindberg shows her design process of this sweater and also the knitting process, which I think is awesome. Overall, I would say if you do not know Veronika Lindberg yet, you should definitely check her out. She is very active on both YouTube and Instagram. And I really like her designs because they always read modern, but somehow with a playful twist. She has also published 2 books with Laine. One is called Knit This and the other one is Knits to Wear, that you should check out as well if you like her design aesthetic. So while we're on the topic of Laine, let's talk about Laine for a bit. Laine is a Finnish publishing house and they publish both a knitting magazine and also books. But the books are not only about knitting, but also about other crafts, lifestyle, and also food. For example, their 52 Weeks of Socks book was a very popular one that was published in February of 2020. And they just came out with a special magazine called Finnish Knits that is all about different knitting patterns from Finnish knitwear designers. So that's a perfect match for this video, and it was really a total coincidence. It features 18 different knitting patterns, and if you like the Finnish design aesthetic, you should definitely check it out. So when I found out during my research that Laine had just published a magazine dedicated solely to Finnish knitwear designers, I reached out to them and they very kindly offered to gift a digital copy of this magazine to one of you as a giveaway prize, which I think is just awesome. So if you are interested in winning a digital copy of the Finnish Knits magazine, all you have to do is leave a comment and let me know which knitting pattern from a Finnish designer you would like to knit. It doesn't have to be part of the magazine, it can be any Finnish knitwear designer. And I'm going to draw a winner sometime in the first week of February, and then I am going to contact you. So thank you so much, Laine, for donating this awesome prize. Let's have a look at some of the patterns from the magazine now. The first one that I want to show you is called Vuokko, and it is a design by Jenny Anza. I absolutely adore this short-sleeved tee. I think it's very beautiful with the Colorwork yoke and the addition of those cute little baubles. It is knitted in a DK weight yarn with a gauge of 20 stitches and 30 rounds over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needle sizes used are a US 2.5 and a US 4, which correspond to a 3 and a 3.5 millimeter needle. The design comes in 10 different sizes, and the finished bust measurements range from 31¼ up to 66 inches or 78 up to 165 centimeters. The design is recommended to be worn with 7 to 12 centimeters of positive ease, which corresponds to 2.75 up to 4.75 inches. The design is knitted in one piece from the top down. The yoke is worked according to the chart, and the body and the sleeves are done in stockinette stitch. The body is slightly cropped, and there are two options for the sleeve length, so you could either knit a short sleeve tee or a long sleeved sweater. Vuokko is the Finnish name for the anemone flowers, which grow in drifts, and those drifts are mimicked on the yoke of the tee, which I think looks very stunning and beautiful. And another design that caught my eye from the magazine is called Crowfeet by Anna Johanna. It is knitted in a fingering weight yarn with a gauge of 23 stitches and 30 rounds over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needle sizes used are a US 3 and a US 4, which correspond to a 3.25 and a 3.5 millimeter needle. The design comes in 12 different sizes with finished bust measurements ranging from 40.75 up to 73.5 inches or 101.5 up to 183.5 centimeters. This design is recommended to be worn with 9.75 inches or 25 centimeters of positive ease. The designer states that she wanted to design a monochrome sweater to reflect the black and white winter scenery in Finland. So the leafless trees against the white snow and just a couple of crows sitting on the branches. The sweater has an all-over colorwork pattern with little crow feet, and the hem features a couple of feathers that the crow dropped on her way. I really like the look of this design, but I do have to admit that I'm still a bit intimidated by those all-over colorwork sweater knitting projects. But I am determined to change that this year and up my colorwork knitting game. And this brings us to the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. I really like to learn something new and also improve my current skills, especially when it comes to the fiber arts. And while I really like the look of colorwork projects, I am often not happy with the neatness of my colorwork knitting. And that is why I'm currently working on improving this skill with the help of Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. Skillshare can help you take your career, skills, hobbies, passions, or side hustles to the next level. You can find a wide array of different classes on Skillshare. They have a crafts and DIY category where you can learn about various fiber arts like knitting, crochet, embroidery, or sewing. But they offer classes for all kinds of different topics like painting or photography. To improve my colorwork knitting, I am currently taking a class by Sarah Clark. It teaches knitting colorwork on the example of a headband that is knitted with 2 colors at a time, and I really enjoy it so far. The first 500 people that use the link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today, and thank you so much Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Back to Laine Publishing. Laine has been founded in 2016 by Jonna Helin and Sini Kramer, and they are also both designers themselves. Sini has only published 4 designs on Ravelry to date, but Jonna has more than 50 designs published, and one knitting pattern of hers that I wanted to show you is called Piilo. Piilo is a striped drop shoulder sweater, and it was published in June of 2021. It has, like I said, a drop shoulder design and a relaxed fit. I also really like the unusual neck of this sweater, which is apparently called a chimney neck. The yarn that she used is La Bien-Aimée Cori worsted with a gauge of 23 stitches and 31 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The design comes in 9 different sizes and has finished bust measurements of 42.5 up to 72.25 inches or 106 up to 181 centimeters. It is recommended to be worn with 12 inches or 30 centimeters of positive ease and is knitted top down, mostly in the round, but in the beginning you knit the back and front pieces flat before you join in the round under the underarms. So even though this is a simple and uncomplicated design, there are still a couple of tricks you can learn when knitting it. For example, the jogless stripe method, and also how to make the color switches in the ribbing invisible. Let's move on to the next designer. A video about Finnish knitting would not be complete without mentioning Sari Nordlund. Sari has a strong presence both on Instagram and on YouTube. She also has her own YouTube channel, so if you have not seen that yet, you should definitely check it out. She also has a huge amount of knitting patterns published on Ravelry. I think she has more than 350 patterns available, which is just awesome. What I personally really like about her is the fact that she tends to knit with very soft neutral colors and also her beautiful intricate cable and lace designs. So this was very hard for me to choose just a couple of patterns because there are so many beautiful patterns by Sari. But the first one that I want to show you, and one that I definitely would like to knit this year, is called the Champagne Pullover. This was published in September of 2024, and it is a stunning all-over cable and lace design. She knitted this one in a fingering weight merino yarn and a lace weight silk mohair. So this comes out to a DK weight gauge with 20 stitches and 28 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needles that she used are a US 2.5 and a US 4, which correspond to a 3 and a 3.5 millimeter needle. The design comes in 9 different sizes with finished bust measurements ranging from 95 up to 175 centimeters or 37.5 up to 69 inches. The sweater is recommended to be worn with 20 centimeters or 8 inches of positive ease. It has a boxy fit and a drop shoulder design. It is knitted seamlessly top down with this cable and lace pattern on the front, back and the sleeves. You start at the back neck and then increase to the full width of the back. Then you pick up stitches for the shoulders and work the front of the sweater. Under the arms you join the front and the back, and then you can work the body in the round. You pick up stitches from the body for the sleeves and the neckband. The sleeves do have a bit of short row shaping at the sleeve caps to improve the fit. The hem and the cuffs are finished with a tubular bind-off, which provides a beautiful and also stretchy looking edge that I personally quite like, and the neckband is folded double in the end. But if you don't want to commit to an all-over cable and lace design, I wanted to show you this one as an alternative. It is called the Rococo Raglan Tee, and the body is simply knitted in stockinette, and you only have the lace motif on the short sleeves, which I think looks very beautiful. This one came out in June of 2024. And is knitted with the Knitting for Olive's Pure Silk, which is a 100% silk yarn. I have used the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk last year when I made the Cumulus Tee by Petite Knit, and I personally quite enjoyed knitting with it, but there are some knitters that find it a bit hard on the hands because the silk just does not have as much give as a wool yarn. So that is definitely something for you to consider if you would like to knit this pattern with the recommended yarn and do not enjoy the lack of elasticity that simply comes with either plant-based yarns or silk yarn. Pure silk is a fingering weight yarn with a gauge of 24 stitches and 34 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needle size used is a US 2.5, which corresponds to a 3mm needle. The design comes in 9 different sizes with finished bust measurements ranging from 77.5 up to 151 centimeters or 30.5 up to 59.5 inches. The recommended ease is -5 to +2.5 centimeters or -2 to +1 inches. The tee is knitted seamlessly from the top down. The neck shaping is worked flat, after which the rest of the tee is worked in the round. The hem is folded double to give the tee a neat and finished look, and the neckband and the sleeve edges are finished with an I-cord bind-off. The lace pattern in this knitting pattern comes both charted and written, which is always great. Sari states on the Ravelry page that the lace that she used for the sleeves is modified from one of the lace motifs from the Knitting Stitch Bible by Hitomi Shida. I recently talked about the Knitting Stitch Bible in another video, which was all about Japanese knitting patterns and knitwear designers. If you have not watched this one yet, I highly recommend that you do so. I'm going to link it for you both on the screen and also in the description box. Let's move on to the next Finnish knitwear designer, and I would like to introduce you to Ronja Hakaleto, and I'm even wearing one of her designs today. So this is a dress called the Hilja Dress, and it was published in May of 2024. It is knitted in the Holstgarn Coast, which is a blend of cotton and merino, and you hold 2 strands of this very light fingering yarn together, and I decided to hold 2 different colorways together. For my version, I used 2 colors called Nimbus and Sapphire. This dress is knitted at a DK weight gauge of 19 stitches and 33 rounds over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needle sizes used are a US 2.5, a US 4 and a US 6, which correspond to a 3, a 3.5 and a 4mm needle. The design comes in 8 different sizes with finished bust measurements ranging from 82 to 151.5 centimeters or 32.75 up to 60.75 inches. It is recommended to be worn with 8 to 9 centimeters or 3.25 up to 3.5 inches of positive ease. The dress is worked from the top down, starting from the back neck, and then the upper back is worked flat until the underarms. You pick up stitches from the shoulder straps to work the upper front until the underarms, and then the pieces are joined on the same circular needle, and the body is worked flat until the beginning of the skirt part. You work the skirt then in the round, and the neckline, hem, button bands and armholes are finished with ribbed edges. I absolutely love this design, and I really like the way my dress turned out. I made the second to smallest size, and I was able to do this with only 3 balls of each of the colorways, which was just awesome. Another knitting pattern by Ronja Hakaleto that I wanted to show you is called the Bluebird, and it came out in February of 2024. So this is another one of a nature-inspired motif and a colorwork yoke. It is knitted with the Finnish yarn Tukko Wool DK with a gauge of 17 stitches and 26 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needle sizes used are a US 4 and a US 6, which correspond to a 3.5 and a 4mm needle. The design comes in 8 different sizes with finished bust measurements ranging from 95 up to 157 centimeters or 37.5 up to 61.75 inches. It is recommended to be worn with 9.5 up to 12.5 centimeters or 3.75 up to 5 inches of positive ease. This cardigan is worked seamlessly from the top down. You start by casting on stitches for the neckline and work the neckline ribbing. You then continue to the collarwork pattern and yoke, and a few short rows are worked for a better fit around the neck. Sleeve stitches are then placed on hold while you work the body and the hem. and you knit the sleeves in the round either by using magic loop or with double pointed needles, whatever you prefer. So this is a project that is knitted in the round and then steeked. So this means you have to cut your knitting in the end to create this opening in order to transform it into a cardigan. Personally, I have not steeked anything before, but I would love to give it a try this year. And one more knitting pattern by Ronja Hakaleto that I wanted to show you is called the Tupa Socks, and it is a beautiful all-over colorwork design that was published in November of 2024. It was knitted with a fingering weight yarn. She used the Woolen Twine Fiber Studio Ovis sock yarn, which is an all-natural sock yarn made of a 50-50 blend of Jacob and Cheviot. The gauge is 32 stitches and 33 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. And the needle size she used is a US 1.5, which corresponds to a 2.5 millimeter needle. This pattern comes in 2 different sizes and is worked from the cuff down and contains a short row heel. So I know this video is getting quite long, but like I mentioned earlier, there is just an astonishing amount of talented Finnish knitwear designers out there, and I just could not make a video like this one without mentioning Veera Välimäki. And one design of hers that I wanted to show you is called the Serendipity Sweater, and it came out in May of 2024. It is a beautiful cable design with the cables on the sides and a beautiful seed stitch in between. The yarn that she used was a merino yarn held together with a silk mohair to create a DK weight gauge of 20 stitches and 34 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needle sizes used are a US 4 and a US 6, which correspond to a 3.5 and a 4 millimeter needle. This design comes in 10 different sizes with finished bust measurements ranging from 36 up to 72 inches or 90 to 180 centimeters. The sweater is recommended to be worn with 4 to 8 inches or 10 to 20 centimeters of positive ease, and it is worked from the top down in the round. The yoke has a classic raglan shaping and also contains some short rows at the back of the neck to ensure a good fit. And one more design of Veera that I wanted to show you is called the Hiesu Sweater. This came out in September of 2022, and while it is a rather classic and simple tee, it has this bit of added interest with the textured stitch pattern all over. So it is knitted in a blend of wool and linen with a DK weight gauge of 18 stitches and 26 rows over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The needle sizes used are a US 6 and a US 8, which correspond to a 4 and a 5 millimeter needle. The design comes in 9 different sizes with finished bust measurements ranging from 36 up to 68 inches or 90 up to 170 centimeters. It is recommended to be worn with 6 to 8 inches or 15 to 20 centimeters of positive ease. It is worked seamlessly from the top down, and you start with the back. Then you pick up stitches for the shoulders and join for the front and later for the lower body. And the final touches are the collar and the sleeve ribbings that are both ended with a tubular bind off. So this was just a very small peek into Finland's large knitting community. Unfortunately, I cannot show you all of the designs, but I have created a bundle on Ravelry with more than 70 different Finnish knitting patterns in it. I'm going to link it for you in the description box. But what is the secret of Finland? Why does a rather small country like this one has such a large amount of knitting patterns and knitwear designers? Personally, I think it might be due to the fact that historically knitting has been a very important skill, not only in Finland but in Scandinavia in general, due to the harsh climate and the cold winters. I also found a study that states that knitting is the most popular craft in Finland, and that 25% of the population knits. And in addition, in Finland, knitting is still also taught in the schools. But that's just my guess. I would love to know, what do you think is the reason that Finland has such a rich knitting community? Please leave a comment and let me know. So this was part 2 of my Knitting Around the World series, in which I feature one specific country with a selection of its knitting patterns and knitwear designers. The first part was all about Japan, and if you haven't watched this video yet, I recommend that you check this one out next. Until next time, happy knitting. Bye guys!